out with Paul Allen from KFAN to basically do do play-by-play for some games this year, especially on the road. Bob Kurtz, under his own volition, is taking a little bit of a start and step back this year, maybe kind of weed out some games to the point that maybe in a year or two he will be looking to retire. But this is all him. This is not something the Wild are asking him to do. Those would mostly be on road games. So you have Paul Allen, you have Jim Erickson, the St. Cloud announcer, you have Kevin Fallness, and you have Joe O'Donnell, which is kind of fun. This is somebody that's been in the organization for a long, long time, back in Houston and Iowa as their play-by-play guy. He's finally getting his NHL chance. And then on color analyst, there's going to be a rotation very similar to what the Twins, where every night you don't know if you're going to see Blyleven or Morneau or who else, Roy Smalley or
Troy Hawkins, sometimes Torrey Hunter.
Yeah,
a few.
Yeah, both of them are great. So they're going to do that, where it's going to be mostly Ryan Carter. So he's going to be kind of making that transition. It'll be sometimes Wes Walls, sometimes Lou Nanne, and then sometimes Mike Greenlay. And then you'll have a desk that's either Chorsky, Clymer, or Greener. And Kevin Gorg returns as sideline. Audra Martin as host. I'll be doing pregame still. And that's it. So that's kind of new. So they're trying to spice things up on the broadcasting side. I'll have a story early to probably next week or maybe this weekend on how they're also going to try to spice things up on the game ops side. And so I think that we'll see a little bit of a different life around the Wild this year.
So I was at the Twins game last night, and Parisi and Suter were there. It was kind of a wild night there. Koivu was there as well. And I was just reminded when I walked through the Twins clubhouse, and then I walked past Parisi. And Parisi's, very fit, hardworking, athletic hockey player. And, man, I spend a lot of my time around NFL players and baseball players and NBA players. Hockey players just look tiny in those settings.
Well, you saw Spurge there last night.
Spurge...
Alex Stalock. Yeah. They had some video up of Parisi just pounding the baseball, and one, you realize how good of an athlete Zach is, but two, you're right. I mean, it's unbelievable. And with Zach in particular, the punishment that he puts himself in by going in front of the net for as long as he has, by going into the corners, it's a courageous style that he plays. And but you see that. I mean, it's just crazy. That Cole Caulfield was on my plane coming back from the draft. I couldn't believe it when he walked by me, how tiny he was. I still remember in 2007 being in Anaheim covering the Stanley Cup Final for the Star Tribune and being in the lobby of the Marriott and talking to Patrick Kane, and he was just this teenage little kid. And 2.5 months later, he's making his NHL debut against the Wild. In the game where the Wild won 1-0, but Jacques said something like,
I remember that. Yes.
Jacques had LASIK from Dr. Samuelson, and he didn't like the way that the Wild played that night. And he said something. His quote was something like, "He goes, I want to have my LASIK reversed. I see too much," or something like that. Yeah, it was funny.
It's funny. It is funny too that before this era where everybody feels like they're part of the marketing team, you actually would. Often, with Tom Kelly, that night we were both talking to Jock, and he's like just ripping his team after they won. There was an era when coaches would just rip into their team if they didn't like the way they played, no matter whether they won or lost.
Yeah, I still remember talking to Terry Murray once. Hey, there's Matt Maka. I was still talking to Terry Murray once.
Is he still mad at me?
It was he? I don't even know.
I think you were the one who told me he was mad at me.
Oh, maybe. I think it was more. I think it was. Yeah, it was after you said Leopold was on drugs or something.
Yeah. Well, I shook Craig's hand and talked with him for a while, and he didn't bring that up. So I think he's past it.
Yeah. What was I saying?
I've lost. Brandon, what were we talking about? I lost all.
Brandon would know.
That's a good point. He doesn't listen to the show.
There's 100 people here. They don't even know.
No, they don't listen to the show. We were talking about the size of hockey players.
I don't know. What did I just say before that? Nobody knows? Is anybody here listening? Oh, Terry Murray.
Thank you.
Terry Murray, that's still to this day one of the coaches that he would just savage his teams. And, he was fired out of Philly because he said when they were down 3-0 against Detroit in the Stanley Cup Final, he goes, we're in a choking situation. And that was into him. But then he wound up in Florida, and if you asked him a question, he would not insult your intelligence by denying. He would just destroy the guy. I remember Terry Murray said a quote in Ottawa once that destroyed my relationship with Dan Boyle. But he basically said, there are two places that you don't want to turn the puck over, inside the blue line, either blue line, offensive or defensive. And Dan had a couple turnovers that night in Ottawa to lose in the game, and I wrote the story, and I interviewed Dan about it, and it was like, boom, just turned it off, and Terry just destroyed him. And he was like that all the time. If you asked him a question, he didn't have the lie thing going,
right.
Which I love as a beat writer. Boudreau's kind of like that. I mean, you could tell when Boudreau's just kind of like trying not to be honest. It's almost humorous, because he still tries to almost let you know. It's like when he's telling you the lie, he's also doing it in a way that he's like letting you know, like, I'm lying to you right now. So, oh man, it's funny.
Tom Kelly was always really offended if his team played lousy or played poor fundamentally and won. He hated that. He thought that was like a blight on the game of baseball, that you could play badly and play stupidly and win the game. He was never more upset.
Well, I've covered coaches also like Terry Murray, Mike Keenan, people like that also if you're lousy and the writers like sugarcoated it or
they got mad.
Like they'd get like legitimately upset with you the next day. Like, like how some people like they'll come up to you and like, you're so negative. They'd be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Are you blind?
Yeah.
So, oh man.
There have been times where both managers and coaches, and this is, again, back in the old days where it wasn't 85 people standing around in a group interview all the time. Kind of like hockey is. You still get people one-on-one in hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have managers and coaches pull me aside and say, would you rip this bleeping bleep so he'd start playing?
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Kelly once did an interview with me where he ripped Kirby Puckett because he knew I'd write it, and then he knew Kirby would get hot. And Kirby came up to me the next day, yelled at me, and then went on like a 10-game hitting streak.
Well, Bill Guerin, first school of GMing through the media. It was brilliant what he did yesterday. He calls me back about Fiala, and that his interview me was solely so Fiala would read his quotes. Mm-hmm. I mean, and GMs do that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like the first. It was like the first, like, all right, this guy is starting to, like, and that's, by the way, what he did yesterday is the stuff that Paul Fenton would never dream of doing. I mean, he called me up specifically to basically say, I've been there, I get it, I appreciate where this guy's coming from. I've done it twice, though, and it was bad for me. And so I really hope that he comes to his senses. We've offered him a fair deal, sign and get here on time. And trust me, I've been trying to get Billy to talk about Fiala for 2 weeks, and he wasn't willing to. But then all of a sudden, day before camp, he's like, I'll talk to Russo about it. And so sometimes I'm here to be used, and that's one. And it is funny. I went to bed super late last night, like crazy late, and I still set my alarm for like 8 a.m. because just reporter instinct as a beat writer. You just know that Fiala's signing today, right? If Fiala doesn't sign today, this thing's going a couple weeks. Like you just know. So it's like I better make sure I'm up this morning, and so predictably he settled. I'm not going to say he caved. He got a good deal for him. I never behoove these guys for fighting for what they feel like. You only have one career. The contract's really good. If he proves himself the next couple of years, he's going to his next contract, the 3.5, is going to be something that he's going to blow out of the water. And the Wild, this is the type of thing. It's a good deal for him and a good deal for the Wild because if he does become the player that they hope in the next 2 years, they'll be happy to pay him. Trust me.
Who handles contract negotiations?
Well, it's a good question. Chris O'Hearn's got that role now, but I think Bill Guerin took the reins on this one. And I think he'll take a lot more reins as we go along here. I think it's a lot of times going to be the type of contract that you're doing. If it's just get a deal done with Drew Stafford, that's probably something that Chris O'Hearn could do. And then more and more as the two of them get comfortable, I'm sure that you always, as a GM, usually have somebody that eventually. I remember when Chuck got here, he tried to do everything, and then all of a sudden Shep started doing every single contract in the organization pretty much for the most part, other than some that maybe the minor league guys and things like that.
We haven't seen our friend John Hedges in a couple of weeks. He used to come to all the live shows. We're not on the light rail anymore. That's cutting down on John. But John is doing a great job running Fixology Repair. It's Mall of America, downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, also now downtown in the St. Paul Skyway, walking distance from the XL Energy Center and the Wild offices. Check it out. They do great work on tablets, phones, watches, any device. They sell new stuff. They have their biggest inventories out at the Mall of America, but they have a lot of accessories at the other locations. And again, you take it in there, they'll take care of whatever your problem is. They'll fix it. They'll get you on your way. Check out fixologyrepair.com.
Hi, this is John with Fixology Repair. For the better part of a decade, we've been privileged to serve you for all of your jewelry, watch, and smartphone repair needs at the Mall of America. Since Minnesotans largely hate going to the mall, we expanded 2 years ago to reach you in the Minneapolis Skyway. And now this year, we're pleased to announce we have a new location at Wells Fargo Place in the St. Paul Skyway. All 3 shops are equipped to help with your watch and cell phone repair needs on site, while all jewelry, computer, and game consoles will be completed at the Mall of America store. Please bring us your repair challenges, and don't forget to mention the Talk North podcast for a 10% discount on all of our services.
So is Bill still in the getting his feet wet in the organization, or has he started kind of figuring out how things work?
I think I think he is. He got to meet with all the scouts in Traverse City and try to figure out exactly who does what role and what territories they all cover and things like that. So that was probably very good, and I think he's starting to get the lay of the land. I think he's looking forward to training camp here here in the next couple of weeks. And then slowly but surely he'll start making moves, both stuff that fans will never see, internal moves in the front office, moving guys around, maybe hiring people, maybe eventually letting people go. Right now, everything is status quo in the organization. I mean, nobody's lost their jobs since Bill's been here. People that you'd think that maybe would move on are definitely still around. I mean, Jack Ferrara, PJ Fenton, both of them were in Traverse City. And those were, obviously, everybody knows PJ Fenton, but Jack Ferrara was Paul's longtime mentor and was his advisor, and he's still so far in the organization. And so, slowly but surely, I think that over the next year, we'll start to see more people added to the organization. This late in the game, it's hard for him to get people. I know for a fact somebody that he tried to hire, that just the team that he tried to get him from said no. I mean, the season's starting, no way. And it's just the timing right now. He's going to probably have to deal with the staff that he has, and then maybe he'll make some changes.
What's he doing with the analytics department right now?
Well, I mean, Paul hired one person, and I think that he's going to try to get the lay of the land there, too, and try to expand that. There's a lot of, I think they would like to expand that position. I think they'd like to eventually add, sports scientists. There's a lot of areas that other teams are maybe more advanced than the Wild. They do have a sports psychologist that is on commission, that type of thing. But he 100% buys into analytics as another piece of information.
Good time if you have a live question to come up and ask it now and get that rolling. I got to ask you, you come in wearing another $1 million. It's like you're the Odell Beckham of hockey writers. You just wear the most expensive watch you can.
No, it's not the most expensive watch. But it was I was in Vegas last week, and I didn't do this because I made money. Trust me, did not make money in Vegas. I was walking through the city center. I happened to walk into Louis Vuitton store for the first time in my life. And I didn't even know they make watches, and I just happened to walk over to this thing, and I'm like, oh no, I should not have seen this watch. It was the nicest watch I've ever seen in my life. And of course, I put a number right in my head, and praying it was way lower, and I put a number in my head, and I'm like, all right, if they tell me it's this or lower, I'm buying this. And it was right at that number. So bought it, but it's just an awesome, it's just, look at it. Look at that.
You know what? It's the same time on my watch.
All right.
I don't really get watch culture. I mean, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I can think of a lot of nice things I might buy. I don't think I'd buy a new watch.
Yeah.
So explain it to me.
I don't want to explain it anymore. I'm uncomfortable being laughed at. It's a really nice watch. It's blue.
It is blue.
Yeah.
You can get a blue. Wood. If you have enough money, you can buy a blue watch.
Yeah.
That's the lesson we're learning here.
Yeah.
All right, bail him out.
I like your shirt.
Change the subject.
So I know somebody that's going to Ireland, and I gave him remember I've told the story about how he's going Saturday, and remember I've told the story about how I had that great bottle of Bushmills, the baby blue one that I bought there.
That you dropped?
Andy was there for that. And then Paul Fenton was calling me last June.
Everything is Fenton's fault.
It was. He called
Everything.
me, and as he's calling me, I opened I was opening this cabinet, and it fell out onto the floor. And by the time I was done with Paul Fenton, I was drunk just from the fumes of this whiskey. And but